Pre-Cal. Today's notes is on section 1.4. It's on writing linear equations. There are three forms of linear equations. Standard form is ax plus by equals c. Slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. And point-slope form, y minus y sub 1 equals m times the quantity x minus x sub 1. These three forms I briefly went over in the last set of notes, but now I'm going to give you a little bit more detail. To be standard, the variables x and y both have to be on the same side, and there are some restrictions. Number one, a cannot be a negative number. So when you give an answer in standard form, these are the things you're going to try to avoid. A cannot be a negative number. A and B can't both be 0. Because if they both were 0 and the coefficients were 0, then there would not be a variable left in the equation. Number 3, A and B cannot be fractions or decimals. And number 4, A, B, and C must have a GCF, greatest common factor, of 1. So if any number can divide into A, B, and C other than 1, you must go ahead and do that and simplify it. Slope-intercept form is the one that you're most used to because you've used it with graphing. The slope is m again, and the b stands for y-intercept. For the point-slope form, I made this reference in the last section, remember that the slope is the m, the x sub 1 is the x-coordinate, here we go, and the y sub 1 is the y-coordinate. Y-coordinate, x-coordinate, and slope. Standard, variables must be on the same side, and these four things cannot happen. I'll show you examples of how to, if this does happen to you, how to fix it mathematically. Slope-intercept form is just y equals mx plus b. You definitely need a slope. Pay attention to the wording. You definitely need a slope, and you need a y-intercept in order to successfully write an equation in this form. And then for point-slope form, it's easier when you have a point, obviously, an ordered pair, so that you can put your x and y coordinates here, and the slope right in front of the parentheses. And I made this comment in the last section, but remember that the point-slope form that you see on the board right now, it must have minus signs here and here in your final answer. So what you're going to be doing on a lot of the practice for this section is you're going to write an equation in all three forms. So we're going to practice slope-intercept, point-slope, and standard. It depends on the problem as to which one you start with. Sometimes it's easiest to start with slope-intercept form and then move to point-slope and standard. Other times it might be easier to just start with the point-slope. It depends on the information they give you, and then transform your point-slope back into slope-intercept and then on to standard. So I'm going to give you a few examples so you can kind of get in the pattern in your head as to what I'm looking for. Example number 1. If this is the information I have, slope is 3/4, so I know that the line is rising, and the y-intercept is 6. In other words, the graph crosses the y-axis at 0, 6. And I'm supposed to write an equation in all three formats. Well, since I have been given a slope and a y-intercept, and again, the y-intercept stands for the b, then from this particular problem, it's probably easiest to start with slope-intercept, thus the name. And so that's what I'm going to do first. So y is going to be equal to 3/4. All you're doing is substituting in for the appropriate letter. Let me do this first. This is what we're looking at. So y is equal to, according to the directions, 3/4 is my slope, and my y-intercept is 6. And so that's all I have to do for slope-intercept form for that problem. Easy enough. Okay, next, I'm going to look for a point slope form. Okay, so in this particular form, again, I need a point and I need a slope. So I have a slope, I have a point, it's just written as 6, but I can transform it into 0, 6. So this is one option you have. So if you go with 3/4 and 0, 6, then you can very easily substitute these in the appropriate places here. Okay, so let's try that. It would be y minus the y-coordinate of the ordered pair here is 6 equals 3/4 times the quantity x minus, and the x-coordinate in this ordered pair is 0. So this is the slope-intercept form, and this is the point-slope form. And it looks different, but it models the exact same information. Okay, so we've done this one and this one. Now we're moving on to standard. All right, standard form. Standard form is ax plus by is equal to c, where a, b, and c are numbers, are coefficients. The variable x and y have to be on the same side. A cannot be negative. A and b can't be fractions or decimals. If they are, we've got to fix it. A and b can't both be 0, because then it would wipe out the entire equation. There would not be a variable. And then in the end, when we think we got an answer, we want to make sure that A, B, and C are only divisible by 1. In other words, they have a GCF of 1. Now, I think the easiest way to do standard form is just to always start with either slope-intercept or point-slope. So when I'm looking at a problem, no matter what information I'm given, and I know ahead of time that I have to write all 3 answers, I tend to do standard last. Usually I do standard last. And so the reason I'm saying that is because what I can do is I can go back and I can pick one of these 2 answers. I can either use this one or this one and just basically transpose and do what I need to do to make it look as close to this as possible. So between these 2 options, both will work. I'm just going to stick with the slope-intercept form because, again, we're more used to that. And so I'm going to keep my eye on this, and I'm going to transpose my 3/4 and make that a negative 3/4 when it comes across the equal sign. And then plus y is equal to 6. Okay, so again, all I've done is move this term across. This is what I have right now. I do like the fact that I have x and y both in front of the equal sign, but according to restrictions, things that can't happen, a and b can't be fractions or decimals. And so I'm going to have to go back. Oh, and I see another problem too. It's a negative, and according to what we've written down, we've actually violated this one, and we violated this one. And so your job is to now get rid of both the negative and the fraction. And so in order to do that, we're going to put a negative. I'm going to do this one step at a time. In order to get rid of a negative coefficient, you multiply by -1. We want to change the sign, not the number. So if I do that, I'm going to end up getting a positive 3/4 x. -1 times y is a -1y. And -1 times 6 is a -6. Okay, so I have clearly gotten rid of the negative in front of the x term. And notice that the way I worded that, the a can't be negative, but it's okay if the b and c are. When you do change the sign of the first term, you have to treat all terms the same, so that's why you need to use parentheses and distribute all the way through. Next, I have an issue with this 3/4. I can't leave a fraction. And so a great way to get rid of a fraction in front of a variable is to look at the denominator. If I want to get rid of 3/4, then multiplying by 4 should take care of that. And so now I'm going to multiply everything by 4, just making it 4 times bigger. 4 times 3/4 is 3. So now it becomes 3x. 4 times -1y becomes -4y. 4 times -6 becomes -24. So this answer is much better than this one. I noticed that a is positive, which I like. A and b are not fractions or decimals, definitely not both 0. And then the last thing I really should have checked is 3, 4, and 24. Is there any number besides 1 that will divide into all 3 of those? And if there is, I need to reduce it. If not, and this one looks good, then this would be the final answer. Okay, so I modeled to you all the way through. In this case, what you would do, you're going to write an equation in all 3 forms. If they give you the slope and intercept first, it makes sense to start with that form. So here was your first answer. Point slope version is here, and standard is here. And if you look at all 3 of those, yes, they all do appear different. They look different, but every single one of these that's highlighted is the exact same equation. If I were to take this standard form and treat it like I was graphing and solve for y and transpose my 3x and divide by -4, I would end up getting the exact same thing as this. Okay, so keep that in mind. It's just 3 different ways to write the same answer. And the reason we need to know all of them is they all have advantages. Like this one is really good to use with graphing. This one we use a lot with calculus and some of the higher math. So that's why I'm showing you that now. In standard, textbooks like to write equations in standard form, and that way you get the experience of practicing with them and trying to make them more simplified. All right, let's give it another try. Notice example 2, obviously same directions, but this time the information's changed. It says the line that I'm thinking of is passing through the point 12, 2, and the slope is -5. Okay, so I noticed that I actually have, I have a point and I have a slope given to me. I have a point and a slope. Because of the nature of the problem, I think point slope form is kind of jumping out at me right now. It's exactly what I have. So I'm going, on number 2, I'm going to choose to start with point slope. Just because because I already have the information I need. Okay, so y minus the y coordinate in this problem appears to be 2. So we're going to stick a 2 there. Again, remember the form has a minus sign, so this clearly indicates that 2, just 2, is the y coordinate. Equals, slope is -5. And then I'm going to do x minus, and then the x coordinate in my point is 12. And just like that, I've substituted everything in correctly, and I now have an answer, first answer, for one of the forms for that equation. Okay, next, I'm going to go with the slope-intercept form. There are a couple ways to do this. One, since I did start with point slope form and I already have an answer here, I could take the slope intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. I have a y and I have an x in this answer, so I really could just transpose this -2 across, simplify it, and put it in that form. And so I'm going to do that first. I'm going to take the above equation, recopy. I'm going to go ahead and transpose the -2 and make it a +2. Okay, so all I've done is move this to the end of the problem. And in the next step, it still doesn't look exactly like slope-intercept form, and that's because there's parentheses here, so I'm going to just distribute very easily. So it's -5x, and then -5 times -12 is a +60. And then last, I'm going to put my constants together, 60 plus 2, and call it 62. So you really can, if you start with point slope, you can just take the answer for point slope and transform it into slope intercept. So let's go ahead and highlight that one. And then while I'm on the same topic right now, I'm going to show you a way that you probably have been taught before as well for finding slope intercept form. So let me drop down my information from the original problem. I have 12,2 and I have a slope of -5. What I can do is write down slope intercept form. I have a point and I have a slope, but I really need a y-intercept. That's what the B stands for. So when you're doing these problems, you have to, in your head, know ahead of time what you're looking for. I need a slope, I need a y-intercept. I have half of the information I need. 12,2, if I picture that in my head where that is graphed on a coordinate plane, that is definitely not on top of the y-axis, and that's what a y-intercept is. So I'm missing a b. So what I can do is I can take the information I have in this problem and find the b next. So this is my x. Here's my x, of course. Here's my y. Here's my slope. So put 2 in place of y. You can put -5 in place of the m. X is 12. And then again, I don't have my b that I need, so I'm going to go ahead and try to find it. And so I'm going to leave that as a variable. And then my goal right now is to solve for b. So 2 equals -5 times 12 is -60. And then I'm going to transpose this over and call this 2 plus 60 is equal to b. And again, this is just a second way to find the slope-intercept form, totally different route, but I did want to share it with you because sometimes this method is needed instead of this. So now I found my b. I have my slope, and then I can write my final answer. So for slope-intercept form, it would be y equals negative 5x plus 62. And that's exactly what I had over here, just taking this answer and transforming it. Alright, so for question 2, we have this one done, we have this one done, now we're looking for standard. Standard form. I'm going to do the same thing I did on the last problem. I know that standard form is ax plus by is equal to c. I'm going to take my answer I just found for slope-intercept form and kind of jot that down so you can follow me here. And then I'm going to transpose the negative 5x across, make it a positive 5x plus y is equal to 62. And so that wasn't too bad at all. All I did was move this across. And then I'm going to pay close attention to what I have and see if I violated any of the restrictions. A cannot be negative. Well, mine's not, so that's a good thing. A and B cannot be fractions or decimals. That's also not the case here. A and B cannot be 0, both be 0. They're not. And then I finally look at these numbers, 5, 1, and 62. And if 1 is the only number that divides into all 3 of them at the same time, then I know that's the best answer. And so, looks like it is. I'm going to grab my highlighter and call it quits on that one. So for number 2, write an equation of a line that passes through 12, 2, and the slope is negative 5. Here's my point slope answer, here's my slope intercept answer, and here's my standard form answer. Again, all 3 of them look different, but they're the same answer. This one is the one I would use if I had to graph it. I would have to go up to 62 on the y-axis, and then I would have to rise negative 5 and write 1. Again, on your practice sets, in the directions when you open up Canvas, I've been specific as to which ones I want you to write all 3 ways. So just follow the directions. Okay, we're going to go with number 3 next. And what I'm noticing in number 3 is I'm given 2 ordered pairs. And so slope intercept means I need a slope and I need an intercept. I clearly do not have a slope here. And 512 and 210 are not y-intercepts. For point slope, I need a point. Well, I have 2 of them, so I could choose one of them. And I need a slope, but again, I don't have a slope. So your first thought should be, okay, I've got to do some work here. I've got to find my m. That's what's going to help me. Again, I never start with standard. I always do that last. So the slope formula from the last section and from your past is y minus y over x minus x. We are going to do this. I'm going to do this left to right. Here's my x. Here's my y. X and y. And let's get started. 12 minus 10. 12 minus 10. Denominator, x minus x, 5 minus 2. So my slope is going to be 2 over 3. And that's a nice reduced fraction. Slope is 2/3. Okay, now it's time you make the call. When you're on your own, you'll have to decide, do you want to go with slope-intercept form? Because now you have a slope. Now, again, these aren't intercepts, but you can find it. Do you want to go with point slope because you have a point and you have a slope? And that's completely up to you. Alright, so I'm going to go with point slope. And when you are given 2 points, it does not matter which one you select. I'm going to just pick the 2 and 10. So I'm going to put a 10, sorry, in place of y1. My slope is 2/3. And then x minus 2. Alright, so all I did again is substitute in the appropriate places, and I have one of my answers. Next, I'm going to try to find standard. Nope, I'm going to try to find slope-intercept. I jumped ahead. To do that, I know my answer needs to look like this. I have my slope clearly. I do not have my b. I either have to take this answer and solve for y, or I have to throw one of these ordered pairs in here, find the b, and then write the answer. Okay, I'm going to choose this time just to take the previous answer. And again, it's up to you, what you think is easiest for you. You do need to know both. Transpose the -10 across and call it +10. And then I got to get, slope-intercept doesn't have parentheses, so I've got to distribute. So y is equal to 2/3 x. 2/3 minus 2, sorry, 2/3 times -2 is -4/3. And then we've just got to put those fractions together, and that's it. So -4/3 plus 10. Well, 10 is 30/3. And 30/3 minus 4/3 is 26. Positive 26/3. And I'm going to leave it like that, fractions instead of decimals. And there we go. Alright, and then last, we're going to go back and try to do the standard form. And on this one, I would just take my slope-intercept form answer, and I would transpose it. I'll type it up here. And I would transpose and call that a -2/3 x plus 1y is equal to 26/3. And yes, it's in the right order, it's just I'm running into a problem. I notice, again, second time today, I have a fraction and I have a negative. And so what we did earlier in the notes is we looked at how to get rid of the negative by multiplying by -1, and how to get rid of a fraction by multiplying by the denominator. I showed you two separate steps just so you could follow me, but you honestly could multiply by -1 times 4. -4 would have allowed you to get rid of both problems. And so you actually can do that as well. So I'm going to try that here. To get rid of the negative, think about -1. To get rid of the 2/3, think about multiplying by 3. Well, -1 times 3 is -3. And so I'm going, like I said before, I'm just going to take care of both issues in one step instead of two. -3 times -2/3 now is a +2x. -3 times y is a -3y. And -3 times 26/3 is a -26. And so this appears to be my answer. And again, you always check the A, B, and C and make sure it's only divisible by 1. So there are my 3 solutions for this particular problem. So when you're on your own, you really do have to think about what you have and what you need. Slope-intercept, you need a slope and a y-intercept. That should be common sense based on the word. Point-slope, you're looking to see, do I have a point and do I have a slope? If so, I probably want to start there. Standard is the one that you would leave till the end. That's my opinion. On number 4, I'm not going to go through the entire problem with you, but I do want you to be aware that you could be given a graph. And if you are given a graph and they're asking you the same question, write an equation in all 3 ways, I would, in this case, I think I would just start by finding the b and the m and doing slope-intercept form. The b is where this line crosses the y-axis, and it crosses at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so the B is 6. And then use your previous knowledge of finding slopes with graphs, rise over run. So if I start here and I'm trying to get here, then I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, down 6, and I'm going to go right 2. And so negative 6 over 2 is the same thing as negative 3. Okay, and then I can very quickly just put that back into my equation. So y equals negative 3x plus 6. And just like that, I have one answer. Then I would go on and try to find the point slope form. Again, referencing something from the past, you can do slope, and you've got a point here. Remember, 6 is the same thing as 0, 6. So you could do it that way as well. I did not have this show up in any question today, but I do want to show this to you because I don't want you to make this mistake. If you do happen to have, let's say this, and you're trying to write point slope form, I made this remark in the last set of notes, but it is worth repeating because this is a common mistake. Let's say you have this and you're trying to write your answer. You would do y minus y coordinate is 5 equals 7 is your m, parentheses x, minus x coordinate is negative 1. You would want to write it like that first. Okay, again, here, the number beside the minus sign are indicating what's in your ordered pair. And then you would probably not want to leave it that way just because it doesn't look really finished. And so I would go ahead and change the two negatives over to a positive. This would be a much better answer. Okay. All right, so we're going to give it a try. And again, I'm going to be giving you some textbook problems, like pictures of your textbook. And I want you to follow my directions on Canvas. Some of them you'll just have to write the equation in one form, and then there's a whole section of them that I want you to practice exactly like I did today, giving me all three answers for each problem. Okay, we'll give it a try and see how we do.